this could be just another ignorant moment in American history. So many of you have probably seen or heard about the video from Tiffany Haddish when she was in Zimbabwe, I think recently.
Zimbabwe in Harare. And look at the grocery store. They got a grocery store. It's beautiful. It's beautiful in a grocery store.
She was taking a video and going to a supermarket, and she was saying how great this was and how beautiful this was and how big this was and everything. And so for some people, it felt like she was dissing a little bit because it felt like she did not expect Zimbabwe to have supermarkets and big supermarkets just like in the US, right? And other people are like, well, she's a comedian. That's what she does. It's just like the clip of, that movie when she's like, girl, this is nice. Like this whole thing. I want to put it somewhere here so you can see what I mean.
Ooh, this is nice. Girl, this audience is you right here? Okay.
And so that's kind of how I take it, to be honest. I don't really blow it into proportions, even though, okay, I don't know her heart, but I know she's a comedian too. So we all know that I think she's of Ethiopian descent or something like that. And I don't know how many countries she's visited in Africa, but I know that, she's traveled the world, right? And so my assumption, I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt. My assumption is that it was just a joke. Like she didn't mean anything like, oh, I didn't know they were supposed to have that. I don't think that's the way she meant it. And some people took offense because they felt like this is how she meant it. And I personally don't feel like it. But if she did, I would not be surprised, because this wouldn't be the first time that you would see Americans not really aware of what's going on in Africa or even outside of the US. I did another video last year about Anthony who? AO. Another video with Anthony, oh, I forgot his last name. AO. He goes by AO, right? I'm going to put the video right here where he talked about Africa, jungles and trees and, and it was a big deal, right? Because people were like, dude, you need to apologize. And he did apologize. And I think this year he's taking people to Ghana and all that. So, maybe it was just a mistake, like the way he spoke. He misspoke maybe. But I don't think that he misspoke, because the way he said it was very deep down, that's pretty much like how he kind of thought or felt about Africa. He's never been, right? I don't think he's ever been or something like that. So in his case, it's different. But in Tiffany's case, she's been to Ethiopia. She's been to her home and all of that. And so I don't personally think that she meant it in a disrespectful way, but more like, oh, hey, look at what you can get here. This is gonna be great for my stay, because again, I haven't watched the whole thing. I don't really follow that much what celebrities do, but it kind of appeared to my feed and I read some of the comments. And so to me, it felt like it was more like, oh, this is nice. I can get groceries here too. Not like, oh, look at what these people have, just like us. Ooh, who would have thought that they could have supermarkets and nice stuff and big stuff just like us, right? And so, like I was saying, I wouldn't be surprised if she meant it in a disrespectful way, not because of her, but because of just how a lot of Americans think about what's outside of the US. And coming here in the US, I've had a lot of people, I personally have never been asked if I had a lion in my backyard or anything like that, or if I slept in trees. I know people who have been asked questions like this, right? But to me, I've never experienced that specifically. But a lot of people would ask me questions, and you can feel in the tone as if I had left the jungle, and I'm grateful to be here. Like, oh, how different it is. Oh, it's really different from here, right? Or like they want me to say, oh yeah, here we have roads, or here we have cars, and here we eat 3 times a day. Like, but I'm always like, no, it's not a huge difference. I mean, it actually is not a huge difference for me, because it's not. And so that's what I've experienced right here in the US. In a way, it's shocking, and at the same time, I understand why there's so many people who still, I'm not saying I'm just not justifying it, but I understand why, but it's not right. I'm not saying it's okay. I understand why there's so many people who would, adults, like grown-ups, who would think that we would have this distorted view of the continent, because the media, because of Hollywood and the movies. Like, most movies about the continent of Africa are either like Blood Diamond type thing, like Hotel Rwanda, so genocides, war, things like that. Like, even like, I think it was District 9 in South Africa. It was like, yeah, the white dude is like saved, but everybody else is like gangs, and so most of the movies are like that, portraying Africa as poor, war, famine, all of that. And then white people who go there are white people who save everybody, or survive at least, right? And so now, obviously, you have more movies coming out from the continent that are showing a more realistic view of what it's like to be in Africa. But anyways, so because of Hollywood, and because I think there's this sense of, I don't know if it's entitlement. I think I understand it and I don't understand it. There's not a big sense of curiosity here. And I've seen it by people I interact with who have never lived outside of their state, or that have lived in the same city, like gone to the same school, high school, and still live in the same city where they attended high school. And to me, that's just unthinkable, to still be in the same city where you went to high school. Like, you did your high school, if you went to college, it was local college, and then you got a job and you're still there, the same town, and you're happy about it. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying, to me, it's very odd. But for people who go through that, they're like, yeah, this is okay. Like, some people are like that, and that's fine with them, sure. But for a foreigner, or I would say for some people who have traveled, it's very odd, very, very odd. And that is, maybe it's a Texan thing, because I think you have Paris, Texas. I think you have Palestine, Texas. Maybe you have London, Texas. I mean, as a joke, Texans say that you have everything, all cities in the world, or European towns within Texas, and so they don't need to go anywhere. But they're very self-sufficient. I don't know if that's the word, but it's very centered on themselves and happy about that. They feel like, a lot of people here feel like they are fine with what they have, and they don't need to see what's outside. So in the movies, in people's experiences, also in the news, very rarely will you ever hear about politics or things happening outside of the US, even out of state, right? But like elections in Italy, in France, in anywhere, you rarely hear about these things in US news. But you hear about US news in other countries' televisions. Like, when you're in France, you will hear about US elections. When we were in Morocco, you would hear about Spanish, French elections everywhere, right, in the US and everything. But the other way is very rare. Like, I know that there's a channel in Houston that does, I think, 1 minute around the world. I don't know which news station, but it's like 1 minute around the world. It's like news from around the world in 1 minute. I mean, right? So it's there's that too. There's this lack of interest for what's outside of the US. And another thing is to also tie to that is in education. In education, I've shared before as one of the reasons why we wanted to move too is because of education and because of the way, I don't complain. I don't have many complaints about education here because the kids go to good schools and all of that, public schools. But at the same time, you have to be like hawks on what your kids are learning and everything, right? You have to look, mostly when it comes to like international ideas, international cultural things, right? Like whenever there's like International Day, I always make sure I go just to make sure to see how they talk about other cultures. And there was this one year when my kid was in first grade. I think my oldest was in first grade, I think, or first grade, I think. And they had an activity that was called Christmas Around the World. And so they had like little passports. It was really cute. They had Mexico, they had Russia. I don't remember which other countries they had. So different countries around the world. And then they had the country of Africa. Yes. So the flag, so every country had a flag, and the flag for Africa was the flag of South Africa. So I was like, oh, maybe it was a typo, like when they printed, it just printed Africa, not South Africa. So I was like, maybe it's that, okay? But I opened the passport. So for each country, they say how they celebrate Christmas and things like that. And so for the country of Africa, the way they celebrated Christmas was Kwanzaa. And I was like, no. The first time I heard about Kwanzaa was when I came to the US. We don't celebrate Kwanzaa around Africa. It's an American celebration. And so I was really mad. And so I emailed the teacher, copying the principal and all of that, saying that this is wrong, that they need to tell the kids the truth, like they need to explain the real thing, that is they're teaching the kids something wrong. So I didn't get any reply. Never mind. Following year, my second child gets the same assignment, the same thing. And you know, these are like curriculum that teachers, like this is not created by the teacher of the school, right? It's like teachers by teachers, you know, curriculum that they share among teachers and all that. So I'm like, oh, maybe, you know, it's not like they created it, but at the same time, if you're going to teach something, you need to make sure that what you're teaching is accurate, right? And you would have thought that after a parent, I don't know if I was the only one complaining, but after one parent complains about an assignment, you would actually review that curriculum. But no, following year, same assignment, same everything, same Kwanzaa in Africa. And this time I didn't do anything. I just told my kid, I just printed a world map, and I told my kid to bring it to class to show the teacher where Africa is and that they're different countries and that we don't celebrate Kwanzaa. And so what I was like, 2 years later, it would have been my girl's turn. So I was like, I'm not gonna wait. I wanna do my part. And so I started teaching my kids about the continent, about different countries, about not just Africa, but other continents, and quizzing them on countries and which continent they are, what are the capitals and all that. So these are the things that you have to do as a parent anyways, right? If you're not happy with certain things, you know, you take things into your own hands. But I feel bad for the kid who is not gonna have the parent, you know, interject or do anything. So in education too, you are taught things that are really inaccurate, and that's in first grade, right? And so you add this with the lack of news from around the world, with the movies and all of that, then obviously you're gonna have a very negative and very limited and very skewed view of what the continent of Africa is, right? And the last thing that I wanted to share too is that when I was in high school, I remember same thing as with the news, is that I went to a French school, and in our curriculum for I guess it's the equivalent of the SAT test or something like that. These are exams that you take in order to graduate high school, right? And so in geography, so we had different topics, and one of those were the landscape, as well as the economy, like the growing economies of countries around the world. And I remember for my exam, I picked the United States. Like, I learned about the different industries and the different things. So we had to learn about Japan, Brazil, the US, different countries around the world, right? And so not just Morocco because we were in Morocco, but different countries. And that was the curriculum. But I don't know if students here do that. I know they study Texas, probably other states, but I don't know to what extent they study world economics, world geography in depth, not like just, okay, this is where it's located, right? But really like the different industries of some countries. I'm not saying like all countries in the world, but some countries, right? I don't know. My kids are not in high school yet, so I don't know. But if it's the case, if you have your kids in high school, or if you yourself went through high school here in the US in public education, let me know if you learned that or not, okay? And so these are the factors that make things like that, like Anthony's and Tiffany Haddish's videos, not surprising and not shocking to me. Am I indifferent to it? No, because it really breaks my heart to know that specifically Black people not knowing these things. So it doesn't offend me because it's not like I know these people. It's not like they're hurting my feelings. But it's kind of sad. That's what I'm trying to say. It's really sad. Whether Tiffany Haddish meant it in a comedic way or just like a genuine way, it raises again that question of, okay, what is the perception of the continent? In one sense, on the one hand, as an African, we don't care, because it's like saying, just like anybody, I don't care what you think about me. On another hand, you want other people to respect you, and you want them to have an accurate picture of who you are, right? You want to come to the table knowing that other people know that you're at the same level, not that you are those countries. Like, how did you say that? Those SO countries, right? And so again, same thing. So today I really wanted to kind of touch on that again. I don't worry too much about celebrities' level of ignorance or intelligence or things like that, but just because it popped up and it was really relevant and it adds to the why it's important for me and my family to bring our kids into a Black majority environment where you will not have to justify, you will not have to put pressure on the teachers to know certain things, basic things, right? And, you know, just to know that it's not that we don't live in trees and and we don't pet lions in our backyard, okay? So I would love to have your thoughts about the whole thing. Did you watch the whole video? I didn't even watch the whole video, okay? I gotta tell you that. Did you watch the video, Tiffany Haddish's video? Let me know your thoughts. What did you think about it? Was it just like, well, you didn't really think much of it because she's a comedian, it was just like, she didn't mean anything bad? Or on the other hand, you thought that it was pretty ignorant? Or you're like, I really don't care about that. Let's move on, okay? I mean, we're still moving on, right? But I would love to have your thoughts. All right, I will be talking to you soon. Bye.